Frank's only son, Stephen. And today with my sister Monica, we have to share our memories of Dad. Frank was born in 1929 and was forged in the furnace of the Great Depression and World War II. He grew up with his older sister Pat and his younger sister Judith. As you probably guessed by now, Frank was the problem middle child and the only boy. Imagine that, being the only boy surrounded by sisters. That would be weird. Dad was a boarder at St Patrick's College in Goulburn, where he met his lifelong and dear friend Ian McGowan, who's here today to say his goodbyes. Ian told me today he first met Dad in 1942. That is an enduring friendship, Ian. Frank's father died when Frank was barely a man, and he entered adulthood without his father by his side. In the 1950s, Frank pursued a career as an electrical engineer. It was also the same decade that he met Mum. They fell in love and married in 1959. Yesterday would have been their 59th wedding anniversary. It was Paul Kelly who coined the song title "From Little Things, Big Things Grow." And Dad's union with Mum is living proof of this. Between 1960 and 1971, they had 7 little Australians, and as the years progressed, they welcomed 24 grandchildren and 4 great-grandchildren. Truly a blessed couple, they reap the rewards of the small seeds that they sowed together. Dad was a man who loved his sayings, and I can always recall him saying, "A place for everything, and everything in its place." Now, this was a man who had 7 children, remember. In our house, there was a place for everything, but nothing was in its place. This was not easy for Dad, who was anally retentive long before the phrase had been invented. Dad loved his family, but let's just say that patience was not his strong suit. To cope with this all, Frank had some buffers. These buffers were work, golf, and going to the club on a Saturday afternoon. Now, once each year, these buffers were stripped away and Frank was totally exposed. These occasions were called holidays. Frank approached them with military precision, heading off to the NRMA to get maps and planned the whole road trip to Queensland. No Google Maps back then, kids. Off we go. And toilet stops were duly factored in, of course. Dad and I would be in and out within minutes, ready for the next leg of the journey. Meanwhile, 20 minutes later, Mum and my 6 sisters would come out of the toilet bowl. Dad never seemed to grasp the fact that a few minutes just wasn't enough time for the females in his life to do what they had to do. Needless to say, the rest of the journey was spent trying to make up lost time, which he did. Until, of course, the next rest stop came along. I'm sure you get the idea by now. And each holiday would end with Dad proclaiming as we pulled into the driveway in Carlingford, "That's it, we're never going away again." But a year would pass, and work, golf, and going to the club on a Saturday afternoon all helped Dad to forget the pain of the previous year's holiday. So he'd head off to the NRMA once more. I think you know how the rest goes. Now, Dad was a curious father, often asking questions of his children. Some of these questions include the following: who left these lights on? Who slammed that door? And my personal favourite, were you born in a tent? This last question was delivered in a typical deadpan manner, which made us clueless kids pretty concerned that our own father didn't even know where we'd been born. In the 1970s, Dad was convinced that Telstra was ripping him off, and let's face it, they probably were. But perhaps the phone bills had something to do with those 7 children of his. He set up a money box by the phone and a sheet, which we all had to fill in, listing who we called, where they lived, and the call duration. Now, Dad trusted his kids to fill this in each time they rang anyone and to put money in the box. Silly, silly man. My girlfriend at the time, Patricia Riley, very helpfully filled it in as follows: Jack Frost, North Pole, 20 minutes. I can still remember Dad coming out to angrily inquire, "Who's the bloody comedian?" and like Queen Victoria, he was not amused. Now, Dad was always very thrifty and careful with his money. Some would even say he was tight. I mentioned earlier that Dad loved his sayings, and a very memorable one of his was, "Make a prisoner of every cent." When I got married to Patricia, Dad made a point of impressing the saying upon us both. Well, Patricia was horrified. He was waging a war on Australian currency and became a double agent, telling Frank she was imprisoning money when in fact she was launching a guerrilla war of spending, a war she's continued up to this present day. Dad never knew of this treachery, thank God. Now, Dad would be especially proud of his youngest daughter, Julia, who's been his most loyal foot soldier in the ongoing war to imprison money. Julia, good luck with it all, but just remember, my wife is still keen to set free as many cents as possible. The last few years have been very hard on Dad and on Mum. And as he got older, he faced battles with prostate cancer and lung cancer. He used to say to me he had one foot in the grave and the other one was on a banana skin, which showed that no matter what life threw at him, he faced it with his typical droll humour. When Dad died last Friday, he was surrounded by Mum and his children. He knew how much we loved him, and we still do. As he took his last breath, I was there with him, and I said to him it was time to let go. He'd fought the good fight all the way to the end. I know he's no longer in pain, and he's truly at peace, and I take comfort from the fact he died on his own terms. He was with Mum in their own home, close to the end. Thank you, Dad, for your life, and for everything you gave to Mum and to all of your children. Truly, yours was a life well lived.
Thank you, Stephen. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to celebrate our Dad's life. My name is Monica and I'm the middle child, like Dad, but we're not here to discuss the problems of being the middle child. I'm here to share my memories of Dad. I'm sure I echo the sentiments of my siblings and Mum when I say that Dad was also a man of great faith. When we were young, we had to come together as a family to pray and kneel, and it was always in the lounge room. Now, as you can imagine, we weren't too enthusiastic when it came to this practice. We complained like all children do, and we mysteriously developed a sore knee or a sore leg, so we didn't have to kneel. And the one that didn't have to kneel would sit there and smile and smirk at the others that had to kneel. Dad and Mum, of course, would soldier on and say the prayers as reverently as they could. I was always fascinated by how dedicated they were at praying, especially when there were 7 children in the house. Dad gave up many hours for the church, helping in many capacities. I always admired his dedication to the church. He instilled in us his love of God, and he always taught us to be compassionate to each other. And to this day, I believe compassion is the most important virtue you can follow in your daily life. Dad did take this compassionate message to the extreme, which was often the case with Dad. His heart was always in the right place. At one stage, he wanted us to kiss each other hello and goodbye. This was when we were teenagers. Now, you can just imagine our reaction to this. We were horrified. Kiss my siblings? My goodness, I can't imagine anything worse. This practice went on for a little while, but it didn't last. Again, Dad meant well, but we were teenagers. Dad also instilled in us the importance of gaining a skill or a higher education to prepare you for life. I am grateful for Dad, as I'm sure my siblings are, for pushing us to gain an education or a skill. My own husband, Craig, often says to people now, many times he says this, that if it wasn't for my dad, he may not have gained his surveyor qualifications. Greg is forever grateful to Dad for encouraging him. So thank you, Dad. I would like to share some memories of Dad from Mr. Ian McGowan. As Stephen has mentioned, Ian was his lifelong friend, who remembers Dad as a real character, someone who he didn't have to speak to for months, but when he contacted him, they resumed conversation like no time had passed. Ian remembers Dad being a true character, a loyal friend, and someone who he remembers fondly with a laugh. I'd like to finish. I would have loved to have shared much more about Dad, but we haven't got all day. So I'd like to finish by saying, as I got older, I appreciated Dad's sense of humour. I think he was quite serious at times, but he was also able to have a laugh. In fact, I think he had a wicked sense of humour when you got to know him.